Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It is build day in the studio, which is always a very exciting day. So this build is a Strat-Tele hybrid and roughly, inspired by Fender's Parallel Universe series guitar. But I figured we can do something a little bit cooler, a little bit cheaper, and a little bit more unique. Now, as you guys can see, I've done a little bit of prep work on the body over the weekend. I've put in all the shielding paint, and that's just going to keep everything quiet. Shielding paint is really easy to use. It's just a small bottle and a brush, and you can kind of coat it at will, do a couple coats, 2 or 3 coats. And it's a lot easier to use than, copper foil or any of those other things. It goes on quick and easy and works really well. Okay, so let's start today's build by putting on our Graphtech ratio tuners. Now each one comes with a huge bag of adapter plates. So no matter what style of guitar you have, if you're retrofitting one or if you're just gonna do a fresh install like I am, there's a bunch of different brackets to choose from. So I just picked one, that seems to fit the headstock all right and went to town. All right, so here's a shot of the back of the pickguard with the shielding applied. Hopefully this shielding in combination with our painted cavity should keep hum and buzz at bay. Hopefully no grounding issues and keep these single coils as quiet as possible. Okay, so let's jump over and install our Obsidian wire electronics kit. So first thing we want to do is slip it into the pickguard, so let's do that. There we go, we'll flip it over here, and then we're going to attach all the nuts and bolts just to keep it in place. Now that we've got our electronics in place, now we can start plugging in our wires into the corresponding spot on our solderless quick connects, which is awesome. And then, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this here. There's a little ground terminal, so the wires from the cavity ground and the trem ground will all come in here, and it's just a little screw. We can back that off, slip our wires in, and then tighten it up. We'll do that obviously after when the pickguard's in the guitar. But for now, let's connect our pickups into the quick connects. Now slots 1 and 2 are for our output jack. We're not going to connect those right now, but we can do our pickups. So neck pickup is going to go into slots 3 and 4. So let's go ahead and do that. Now slot 3 is for the ground, so let's grab our black wire here. And all we have to do is grab slot 3 and then use a screwdriver to depress the little quick connect mechanism. Push your wire in, let go, and that's it. No soldering, no anything. So beautiful, beautiful system. Slot 4 will be the other side of our neck pickup, so let's go ahead and put that in. Same system, you just press the switch down, put the wire in, and you're done. Just a beautiful system. Okay, let's continue on and do the rest. All right, next up is our output jack, so let's go ahead and see if we can fish these wires through into the main control cavity here. There it is. Okay, so we'll just leave that loose for a bit here. And what we're going to do now is attach that into our main electronics. All right, our output jack ground wire will go into slot 1 and our hot wire will go into slot 2. So let's go ahead and do that first. It's probably going to be harder for you guys to see, but the process is the same. Just depress the little switch with the screwdriver, push the wire in, and then you can just sort of make sure it's secure. And there we go, we're all wired up. Okay, so now let's deal with our ground wires. Now ground number 1 needs to be fished through from the main electronics cavity through to the back of the trem. So that's going to have to be soldered back to your trem claw. Now if you're just doing an electronics upgrade, you wouldn't have to do any soldering. You would just clip it off, already soldered to the back and then feed it to the ground terminal on the Obsidian wire kit. But since we're doing a fresh install, we're going to have to solder that to the trem claw. And our second ground here is the cavity ground. So we need to drill a hole and attach this wire to our shielding paint, and then that will also go to the ground terminal. All right, so here's my super awesome vise, a pair of channel locks with a hair tie, but you know what, it works. And then I don't have to go out to the garage. So just a quick tip for people who don't have the proper tools. This works. So anyway, we'll heat this up and solder it away. Next up, we'll take our little soldered ground wire bracket and we'll put a screw through that little kind of grippy washer. And then what we're going to do is screw that into the body. So let's do that now. in there. All right, now that should contact our shielding paint for the whole cavity. And now we have our 2 ground wires. Let's attach that into our pickguard. And here's the terminal for our ground wires. So I've twisted them together and we're just gonna slip them into that little terminal and then use the set screw to keep everything nicely in contact and beautifully grounded if all goes according to plan. There we go. Okay, so we've run into our first major problem. I'm gonna hopefully be able to show you guys here. As you can see, the pickguard is overhanging the neck pocket here. So obviously we couldn't get our neck in, it's gonna hit the pickguard. And right here, the pickguard is not sitting flush with the back of the neck pocket. Okay, and I figured out that this back pot, hopefully you can see here, needs to be clearanced out a little bit. The cavity is not large enough. So the back pot here is hitting the end of the route and causing the pickguard to sit askew, okay? And that's gonna have obviously implications. Here, let me grab our trem system as well. This is gonna cause the trem system to probably contact, yeah, it'll contact the bottom of the pickguard right here as well. I don't know if you guys will be able to see that. So it's not gonna sit center in the pickguard. So what we need to do is grab our Dremel tool and sort of clearance out this back cavity so that the whole pickguard can shift backwards and tilt. Okay, so let's do that now. So as you guys can see, here's where I used the Dremel sanding attachment just to kind of widen that out a bit. And that's gonna help the pickguard to kind of shift back into its proper location. Okay, I think we've got the pickguard sitting right where we need it. The trem looks centered in between the pickguard sides and there is a little bit of wiggle either way. So when I attach it, I should be able to center that perfectly. And then when we look at the neck joint here, if I can slide it over. There we go. So yeah, we have a little bit of room. We can kind of wiggle it back and forth, front to back, just so that when we go to attach it, we have the wiggle room that we need to get everything centered perfectly. Okay, we've got our guitar body flipped over. This is the ground wire. We've already attached this into the Obsidian wire kit. So now what we need to do is attach our claw and screws. Now thankfully, Warmoth already has those drilled, so you don't have to have like a huge long angle bit to try to get those in, which can be very frustrating. So what we're gonna do, is just let's blast these in and maybe do the last of our soldering. Okay, so I fished our ground wire up into the claw here. Now I have no idea, where these screws should be set. Once we have our trem in and attached and the springs on, then we'll adjust these screws frontwards or backwards, depending on how, how much tension we need on the trem system. So anyway, what we're gonna do next here is then start to heat this up, and then after a couple seconds here, we will do our final soldering. Now at this stage of the build, let's plug it in and see what we can do. So I've just loosely plugged the amp cable into the jack. Obviously we don't have our plate or anything installed, but let's click the amp on here and see if we've got signal. Awesome. I think we are good to go. Just one of the coils here in position 2. So I think everything is looking good. That's a great sign. Next up, let's attach our output jack. Now, I hate drilling into a brand new body. It's always nerve-wracking, especially making the first hole. But anyway, what you don't want to do is pick a bit that's too big, so that can crack the finish. So, pick something, and we're going to do it in 2 stages. So I've got a small bit here, so we'll drill in with a small bit, and then we'll come in and drill it with, the proper size bit for these screws. So anyway, we've got everything in place. Let's start with, gosh, I hate this, the first hole. And the second one, make sure everything's still lined up. All right, while we're at this end of the guitar, let's actually loosely attach our Blade Runner trem. So this has slotted attachments, so we can kind of, move it back and forth as we need to center it. But let's just attach it lightly, and then, as we go along, then we'll hand tighten it and make sure everything's cool. And then the 2 center ones as well. So Blade Runner makes the 6 screw one. They also make a 2-point, I believe, as well. So if you're, replacing something on a Squire or a Fender that has a 2-point trim. Okay, cool. So there we go. We've got this thing attached a little bit. Oh, that is crazy. Wow. I'm not used to having like a trem that has like flex or tension on it, without any screws or anything else attached. That's really neat. So anyway, so I'll just suck these guys down, just so it can slide back and forth, but just to even out the screws here. That way it won't be flopping around on us. All right, let's move along. Now the Blade Runner kit includes 3 springs, so you know what, let's start by using them all, and if I want a lighter feel, I can always just use 2. So anyway, there we go. We've got those guys in there, and I can probably just attach these by hand right now. Yep. There we go. I don't even need a screwdriver. And then I'll just tighten this up a little bit to just to keep the tension on so the springs don't come loose. All right, you guys, we're getting really, really close to attaching the neck to the body, which is huge. So anyway, if you remember from last week, the unboxing, this is a Bocote neck. Just an insanely beautiful kind of figured neck. I'll just flip it around so you guys can see a little bit of it. But anyway, yeah, just really, really unique and beautiful grain all the way through. It's a stainless steel fret neck, so that's awesome too. And it's a compound radius. So what I wanted to do is just double check that. So I've got my 10-inch radius gauge here. So there we go. And hopefully the camera will catch that, but there you go. There's your 10-inch radius. Oh, puppy's coming in here. And then we'll flip it around and check on the other end. Oh, come say hi, puppy. Hey, buddy. Anyway, so if we flip it around, he doesn't like the camera or the lights, but he likes to hang out with me, so that's cool. And then when we take our 10-inch radius gauge and put it here, you guys can hopefully see from the camera there's a gap underneath, just that little shadow. So when we take our 16 gauge and apply it to the end there, that should be a perfect fit. So let me see if I can juggle it up here. All right, and here is with our 16 radius gauge, and you can see hopefully from the camera, there's no shadow underneath, there's no gap, it's a perfect fit. So Warmoth did a great job doing the radius, or doing the compound radius from 10 to 16. Let's put the neck into the neck pocket here and attach the plate. So there we go. That gives you guys the first glimpse of what this thing is going to look like. Now, one really important thing to note is if you go with a contoured heel joint, you're going to need 2 different sizes of screws. So here you can see we've got a long and a short. So the long will go to the back part of the heel and the short will go to the front because it kind of thins out. So again, doesn't matter what body style you go. If you choose the contoured heel joint, make sure you get the 2 different lengths of screws. Okay, so let's put the neck plate in place here. And it's going to want to slide a bit because of the angle. And then what we're going to do is zip in the long screws first here, just so that we don't mix them up. Okay, so here's a first look at how the neck meets the body. And a few of you guys had questions about the contoured heel because the plate goes in at an angle, like it's thinner here than it is here. But the screws going straight, do the screws kind of hurt your hand? And the answer is no, they don't. You can slide your hand up in here very easily to reach the highest frets. This lower scoop, I don't know if the camera will catch that, but anyway, this lower scoop here is very, very comfortable. And as you slide your hand in, you can sort of see how the screws, especially the back ones, don't sit flush because of the angle of the plate, but that's not a problem at all. And it, like I said, you can feel them, but there's no, it's not uncomfortable in any way. Now here's another shot of that neck joint. You guys can really see how that heel is thicker on one side and thinner on the other, and how the neck mates up to that. All right, you guys, it's time to go around the pick guard and center it and attach it. I'm going to go around with my thin bit first, and then I'll go around with my thicker bit. Let's get at it. Okay, so everything is attached. Neck is on, pickguard is on, electronics are in, output jack is attached. And as you guys can see, the trem went in perfectly. So it's perfectly centered into the pickup notch. So very, very happy about that. And I think the next step is pretty much to get some strings on. But before we do that, I'm going to do a rough setup of the saddles. Here's my 16 radius gauge. And as you guys can see, hopefully anyway, there's a bit of a gap on the center ones. So I'm just going to raise those saddles up to match the 16-inch radius. And then we'll put some strings on and do the rest of the setup. All right, you guys, we are strung up and almost ready to rock. We just need to put some knobs on this baby. So I'm going to put a poll above. You guys can just click on that card and choose which kind of knob you want to see on this one. So the first option here is going to be straight ahead Strat knobs. This is what the Fender Parallel Universe guitar has. I'm going to try to put them on not too hard, but anyway, so that's going to look, pretty classic, pretty normal. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know if you guys want to see those. Our next option is going to be straight up ahead tele knobs. So I'll see if I can pop these off without too much trouble. So straight ahead chrome, tele dome knobs. They'll tie in with the rest of the chrome on the guitar. Try to show you guys from a couple angles. Obviously I haven't tightened these ones down, so I can't tip them up too much, but anyway, there you guys go. Tele dome knobs. Vote up above in that poll if you guys want to see those babies on there. And then of course you guys have seen the zebra wood knobs as well. So I'll slap these babies on. Now they are the exact same dimension as the tele chrome knobs, but just give it sort of a little bit more of a custom look. I haven't pressed them down all the way because they're hard to get off. So anyway, if you guys like those, I'll keep them on as well. So yeah, anyway, vote up above, and whatever has the most votes is going to stay on the guitar. All right, you guys, so here it is. Here is the final-ish product. We still have some tweaking to do and stuff like that, but here it is in its kind of raw form. So beautiful single cut body, but with all the contours of a Strat, plus some bonus ones, the contoured heel and the scoop here. We've got our Trem system all ready to go. I can't comment on that until I use it some more, so I'll do a follow-up video in part 3 where I talk about what it's like to play on stainless steel frets and the Blade Runner and the Wiggins Pickups, all that stuff. So stay tuned for that. We'll do that in the next video, but we will play some tones for you guys here today. So we've got our tele style knob here, but I did do something interesting with the wiring. So I just basically flipped the middle and the neck pickups. So position 5 is actually my middle. Now position 4 is the same. It's like the out of phase Strat sound. Position 3 is now my neck pickup. And there's a reason why I did that, and here's the reason. So in position 2, normally you'd have your middle pickup and one of the coils of a humbucker. But I wanted to have a tele sound, so now position 2 is my neck pickup with the outer coil of the humbucker. So these two pickups, and that's going to give us an awesome tele sound, hopefully. We'll find out. And then the full humbucker. Okay, so that's what we did with the wiring, just so that I could have the outer coils going. So that's really cool. And yeah, like I said, we'll plug it in, take it for a couple tones here, and then next week I'll do sort of my first impressions of all the parts we picked and whether or not it's working. Okay, we are plugged in and ready to rock. So let's do some basic tones here. I'm just plugged straight into my computer through Moore's Preamp Live. Next week when we do our proper tone test, I will plug into the Blue Angel, mic it all up and all that stuff. But today doing the build took a ton of time, so we're just going to do this. So middle position is actually our neck pickup. Here's what it sounds like. Now both pickups together for that quack. And then middle position. Now in position 2 here, we have our neck pickup with the outer coil of the humbucker. So this is kind of like our Tele sound. Again, kind of like just a nice, slightly out of phasey kind of sound. I haven't stretched the strings out too much, so I'm probably out of tune already. Floating bridge. Okay. Anyway, we'll stop that. That was a little painful. And then the full humbucker. I'm not going to turn on distortion or anything, but you guys can sort of just hear how it sounds. Thanks so much for coming along on the build, you guys. Stick around for next week when I give you guys my first impressions of the build and we'll do a proper tone test. Other than that, have an awesome week, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the build. Have a great one. Take care.